Welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving into, pun absolutely intended, a fascinating and honestly increasingly common intersection of modern medicine and extreme sports. Right now, weight loss and diabetes medications are completely transforming healthcare as we know it. You've probably heard of them, or hey, maybe you're even taking one yourself. But what actually happens when you take these highly effective, body-altering medications and plunge yourself 60 feet underwater? Well, today we're exploring the physiological realities of scuba diving while on GLP-1 medications. And trust me, the science of how your body reacts under pressure is absolutely crucial to understand.
So it all boils down to one big question, right? Can you safely scuba dive while taking Wegovy or Mounjaro? It sounds like a simple yes or no, but it's really not. These drugs work absolute wonders on land. They're helping millions manage type 2 diabetes and achieve significant weight loss. But the rules of human biology fundamentally change when you're breathing compressed air under the crushing weight of the ocean. The environment is unforgiving out there, and the side effects of these medications can cascade into real danger if you aren't prepared.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. First, the GLP-1 connection. Second, the digestion danger. Third, secondary physical shifts. Fourth, when to avoid diving. And finally, safe diving protocols. Starting with Section 1, the GLP-1 connection, understanding the medications. We're talking about GLP-1 receptor agonists. Specifically medications like Mounjaro, which is tirzepatide, and Wegovy, which is semaglutide. They're heavily prescribed for type 2 diabetes and weight management. Now, the most important thing to take away from this is that taking these medications does not mean you face an automatic blanket ban from scuba diving. Not at all. However, because of how they alter your bodily functions, they introduce some highly critical safety considerations that every diver and every dive professional needs to be aware of.
Moving on to Section 2, the digestion danger.
The number one threat. Here's the crucial point: delayed gastric emptying. This is without a doubt the number one concern for divers on GLP-1s. One of the primary ways these medications work is by literally slowing down the rate at which your stomach empties its contents. Think of your stomach like a slow-draining tank. Because the food is just sitting there longer, it frequently causes abdominal bloating, severe reflux, a feeling of being unusually full, and, most notably, nausea and vomiting. Now, think about this. On land, feeling nauseous is just a frustrating inconvenience, right? But underwater, it is an entirely different beast. That slight nausea gets compounded by seasickness, the physical bouncing of the boat, pre-dive anxiety, physical exertion, and the literal shock of cold water. If you're nauseous on dry land, the source material is very clear about this. It will not miraculously improve once you're at 60 feet. And if that nausea actually leads to vomiting underwater, the mechanics become life-threatening. Seriously, it vastly increases the risk of sheer panic. There's the grave danger of aspiration, literally inhaling vomit straight into your lungs. This panic and choking can trigger an uncontrolled emergency ascent, which can lead to severe lung overexpansion injuries. And of course, it directly interferes with your ability to breathe through your regulator. Now, yes, training agencies do teach the skill of vomiting through a regulator. You're taught not to take it out of your mouth. But doing so is a survival tactic. It is not a dive plan. Repeated vomiting requires an immediate medical review. That brings us to Section 3. Secondary physical shifts beyond the stomach. And this brilliantly illustrates what happens next. When you experience side effects like vomiting, diarrhea, or honestly just poor fluid intake because you aren't feeling well, you trigger a dehydration cascade. This splits into 3 major risks: severe fatigue, heat illness on the surface, and crucially, an increased susceptibility to decompression illness. While the hard evidence on the DCI link is still developing, adequate hydration is a fundamental pillar of dive safety, and these drugs actively challenge your ability to stay hydrated. Now, here's kind of the ironic part. The primary success of the drug actually creates a totally new hazard. Massive weight loss completely alters your in-water mechanics. You naturally have reduced overall buoyancy. That means the lead weight you used to carry, it'll now drag you straight to the bottom. Plus, your perfectly fitted, expensive wetsuit will suddenly feel like a baggy parachute, leading to freezing cold water flushing right through it. Your trim, your horizontal position in the water, will shift completely. You absolutely must reassess your weighting after a significant physical transformation. We also need to talk about blood sugar. On their own, GLP-1 medications rarely cause hypoglycemia or low blood sugar. However, for diabetic divers, the risk skyrockets if these drugs are combined with insulin or sulfonylureas like glycoside or glipizide. Having a hypoglycemic episode underwater is incredibly dangerous. It causes mental confusion, poor judgment, loss of consciousness, and ultimately drowning.
Divers with diabetes absolutely must continue following recognized diving diabetes protocols, no exceptions.
Another secondary shift? Reduced muscle mass. Because you're consuming substantially fewer calories while on these medications, your body literally has less fuel in the tank. This leads to a noticeable reduction in exercise tolerance and much earlier fatigue. Your leg muscles might just not have the same finning power they used to. This becomes incredibly relevant and potentially dangerous if you're doing a high-energy drift dive, a tough shore entry through surf, swimming against strong currents, or just trying to climb a steep boat ladder in full gear.
Let's pivot to Section 4. When to avoid diving. The red flags.
Okay, this is your absolute do not dive list. If you have persistent nausea, severe reflux, dehydration, or symptomatic hypoglycemia, do not dive, but pay special attention to unexplained abdominal pain. Rapid weight loss significantly increases the risk of gallstones, and if you have severe upper abdominal pain that radiates to your back, accompanied by vomiting, that could be suspected pancreatitis, which is a rare but known association with GLP-1 drugs. If you have any of these symptoms, cancel the dive and seek medical attention immediately. To make this a bit easier, diving physicians have actually established some clear medication timing rules. During the first few weeks of starting treatment, you should not dive. Your body is just still reacting. Similarly, after every single dose increase, you hit a temporary do not dive period. The gastrointestinal side effects really peak during these windows. However, once you reach the stable phase, meaning your dosage is set, your symptoms have totally settled, and you feel physically normal, it is generally safe to dive. Which leads us to the good news in Section 5. Safe diving protocols, getting back in the water. Here is your practical pre-dive action plan. It's super straightforward. Swap out heavy meals for light ones to manage that delayed gastric emptying. Hydrate thoroughly, and always delay your dives after any dose changes. Finally, recheck your weights for your new body mass, and this is a big one. Always inform your body and instructor about your medication. Now, speaking directly to the dive professionals out there, instructors and dive masters, you are the vital safety net. You need to proactively ask your divers if they've newly started Mounjaro or Wegovy, or if they've recently had a dose increase. Check them for signs of nausea or dizziness. Ask if they're combining it with diabetes meds. You must ensure they're appropriately weighted if they've lost mass. Most importantly, when you have a diver on these medications, intentionally choose easier dives with very conservative profiles while you assess their physical tolerance in the water. Let's move to this table and see how this all builds together. When looking at the clinical risk assessment, the highest importance risks are all centered right around digestion. Delayed gastric emptying, nausea, vomiting underwater, and hypoglycemia when combined with insulin. Rare issues like pancreatitis are also high risk, but issues like dehydration, fatigue, weight loss affecting buoyancy, and reduced muscle strength are categorized as moderate importance. This means they are manageable, for sure, but they demand your active attention and adjustment before you giant stride off the back of the boat. Ultimately, the bottom line here is actually really empowering. Mounjaro and Wegovy are absolutely not absolute contraindications to recreational scuba diving. Divers should simply return once they're stable, free from side effects, and well hydrated. Smart management, careful timing, and just an honest assessment of your own body make diving entirely possible and perfectly safe while still reaping all the amazing health benefits of these medications. So I want to leave you with this final thought. Your body is an incredible, adapting machine. But let's be real. The ocean, it does not care about your prescription. With your physiology changing, how will you adapt your next dive plan to ensure a safe return to the water? Take these structured protocols, have a chat with your dive professionals, and make sure your next adventure is memorable for all the right reasons. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and safe diving.